Welcome, everybody. Beer Guys Radio Show. We are happy to be back. I'm back. I was out a long time, guys, with it because we were on the road for a while. And then last week I had a family issue I had to deal with. Y'all keep my dad in your thoughts and prayers if you do that sort of thing. He's been ill and he's still in the hospital. They've been running some tests, but he's doing well. And hopefully in a couple days, he's going to be released from the hospital. I have to go to a physical therapy recovery center for a while, but he's like 107. So,
Oh, okay.
kind of
He was doing
expect
great.
at that age. Yeah. So he's not doing too bad, but I'm back. I'm glad to be back having a beer and running my mouth, man, which is what I enjoy to do. Brian, how the heck are you?
Good. Welcome back, Tim. Welcome
Thank
back.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's hot as balls in here because my air conditioning's broken and has been since Friday or Thursday or something like that.
Yeah.
So you're just lucky it broke when it did, because at least we have dropped some here, and it's still not cool enough to go without AC.
Yes,
but it could have been worse, Brian. It could have been worse.
It could have. The one problem is if it happened earlier, it would have been hotter outside. But since the sun is lower in the sky, I get more direct magnifying light through all my south-facing windows, so that heat just flies in. If you open the window at all for air to get in, you've got all that sunlight just beating down on things and just roasting everything in here. So
Just
it's kind of, there's no escaping. The heat will get you.
Roasty, toasty.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Nate, how you been?
Then well, I'm enjoying this air vent that's right here beside me. Just
I
the
hate you
AC
so
is just
much.
pumping in. It's so nice.
Keep the breeze coming, man.
Brian and I decided that we'd be twinning tonight, so we're wearing the same t-shirt.
Twinning it. You're twinning it. I should have had one. Yeah, I think I've only got a black Beer Guy shirt. That's it. Because see, not our t-shirt maker actually doesn't make t-shirts in my extra husky size, so I have to do without a lot of times. So, but I make it through. Anyhow, let's jump into the show, guys. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Here we go. Welcome, everyone. This is the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are happy to be here and happy to have you with us. We've got a lot to cover this week. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. We've got a collaboration beer from Run the Jewels and Monday Night Brewing. Brian's going to share some news on draft beer. Draft beer's got a problem, right, Brian? We've got a news of a PMC. Hold on, this thing. I'll tell you. I don't like this button. I think I've said before that I don't like this button because it's not clear if it's going to loop or not. And
yep, it's awful.
I'm thinking I've got the loop off. I got to email support about that because I don't like it. All right, guys, I'm going to try this one more time. Welcome, everyone. This is Beer Guys Radio. We are happy to be here and happy to have you with us. It's hump day right now as we record this midweek. We are officially past Oktoberfest in Munich. It's not going to stop us here in America from rocking on with more Oktoberfest events, but it's done. The long one in Munich is done. We've got a lot of hot stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about a collaboration beer from Run the Jewels and Monday Night Brewing. Brian's going to share some info on draft.
I think Tim might be having some technical difficulties.
I believe so. Are you back?
All right, you're back with us.
I believe I lost connection for a little while there.
For a second you cut out there. We may have to try this a third time.
Oh my gosh, what
a charm.
So anybody watching anybody that comes back and watches this live stream later on will be like, what are these guys even doing there?
Have these guys ever done this before?
Yeah. Is this the first time? Oh, this must be their. Oh no, it says 300 and something. This must not be their first episode. Gosh, you guys, hold on. I'm going to. I'm actually a wired connection now, so I don't know why I'm having issues, but I have had. I'm checking to see. All right, guys, it claims it's good. One more time. Third time is the charm. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. This is the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are happy to be here, and we're happy to have you with us. We've got some cold beers. We hope you do too. We've got a lot to cover this week. I'm Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how's it going?
I'm doing great. We've got all kinds of things we're going to talk about. We've got a collaboration beer with Run the Jewels and Monday Night. We've got some Voodoo Ranger stories. They're featured heavily. We've got a draft problem in craft beer, and we've got some interesting beer politics in Africa news. So I don't know how we're going to get it all in and still have time for Mo Mike Nate, but we're going to try. Mo Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. In addition to that, we're also going to be talking about some brewery acquisitions, inflation hitting Oktoberfest, and much more. Guys, thanks for having me.
It's going to be crazy this week, y'all. Just so much
Yeah.
going on. Now, we want to say, if you saw some of our social media tweets, we did have a guest lined up for this week. Unfortunately, that did not work out. We had to change things up there. So you get us. You get the Beer Guys all alone. We've had guests. We did this for a while, some solo shows where we covered a lot of news.
Sure.
Folks seem to enjoy hearing what's going on in the beer world. And but it's nice to have some guests on here, too. See what's going on. Noda Brewing. Just here. That was a fun one. So always a good time. But Brian, I'm looking at our notes here, and I don't even want to talk about this, but you put it on the notes. I know, and you had mentioned it in our Discord chat. So I know it's dear to your heart here, but go ahead, Brian. What in the world are you going to tell us about?
You must be talking about the peanut butter and pickle sandwich thing. It's something I saw on social media. I've never tried this before. I've never even thought of this before, but I follow a few accounts that do like retro 1970s cookbooks and like party dishes, and they've got the weirdest stuff in there. Like that's the era where you would take meat and shape it into things, and then cook it, and you'd have the most the most grotesque things coming out of it. But apparently I think it's a TikTok thing that's hot. So I guess it's just peanut butter and bread and butter pickles. And supposedly it's good. It's on my list of things to do. I don't think I think I have the peanut butter, but I am missing the bread and butter pickles to do this.
Now,
what do you guys think?
You don't like bread and butter pickles, do you?
No, I'm not really a bread and butter pickle guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I like bread and butter pickles, and when you posted it, I did assume we're talking dill pickles here. So, coming from you, I figured it was dill pickles. I eat peanut and peanut butter and other things like Thai dishes. Like you'll have a pad Thai that's got a peanut sauce, and then you squirt your lime and stuff on it there. So it's not that far-fetched of an idea. It just sounds pretty weird. Would I try it? Sure. Am I going to get the ingredients and make one? Not likely. Not likely. So if I was out somewhere and it's like the only food we have right now is peanut butter and bread pickle sandwiches, and I was really hungry, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But what I will not try, Brian, which is another topic we discussed this week, is Pittsburgh style pizza.
Oh, yes. I forgot to put that in the notes.
So anybody listen, let us know. Have you had Pittsburgh style pizza? And it sounds like even in Pittsburgh, this is controversial with some Pittsburghonians. What do they call Pittsburgh folks?
Pittsburghers?
Pittsburgher? If you're a Pittsburgher and you have had Pittsburgh style pizza, let us know what you think, because a couple articles I found said that even people in Pittsburgh were like, I hadn't heard of this style, but I forget the name of the place, Brian. You posted. I guess there's a couple places that do it, but they bake the pizza with cheese and everything. Then when it comes out, they'll put shredded cold provolone and maybe toss some more pepperonis on there and serve it like that with unmelted pizza. And that's just, it's blasphemous is what it is.
Abomination.
Right.
Mm-mm.
What do you, would you try it, Nate? Like, are you running to Pittsburgh tomorrow to get some?
I mean, if somebody puts a slice in my hand, I'll take a bite, but I'm not going to go buy a whole pie of it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know Pittsburgh at all, so I'm completely relying on people's comments to see how right it was. And I did Google one. There's a place called Beto's Pizza, Betos. Okay. And apparently, they do. From the sound of it, they make it the entire pizza with all of the stuff on it, including the pepperoni. And then they just put a ton of provolone, shredded provolone over the top of it. It's cold. And so you get basically an entire pizza plus a topping of cold cheese on it, which sounds so
I'm
weird.
not feeling it, man. I'm just not, if I was around it, I'd try it. And most things I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. I would give it a shot. I mean, like even your crazy peanut butter and pickle sandwich, I'm like, okay, that could be good. I'll try it. I just don't see where I'd like cold cheese on top of my hot pizza. I don't.
That would
and
be a
even the
great Martin
photos,
House beer.
Martin House,
even
which one, the pickle sandwich or the Pittsburgh pizza?
Well, probably both. I'm thinking hot pizza, cold cheese as the
Oh,
name of a
God.
beer. You know
No,
what?
you're
I'll bet
done.
that name is not taken. So if
You're
somebody
done.
wants to run out,
It's me and Nate the rest of the show.
okay.
That's all
I'll
there
keep
is
quiet.
to it. So yeah.
What were you
Well,
saying, Nate?
it doesn't matter anymore. I was just gonna give more attention to a mistake of a thing. So
yeah. See, he's like, look, I don't even want to talk about this. Well, let's move on to some beer talk. Interesting one this week, Brian. Cranberry Tank 7.
Yes.
If you're a Saison fan, Tank 7 is. Am I pushing it to say it's the best American-made Saison? There may be
No.
some outliers. It's the best mass distributed American-made Saison. I think that is a fair statement.
I think that's fair. And it's this kind of a distinctly American take on
Yeah.
it, as it does have a good deal of hop presence, but still very distinctly a Saison. I don't think it's the best one that's made. I think there's other ones I've liked more than that, but that is very high in my top 10, top 3, maybe
It's
top
quite
5.
drinkable. It's a very
yeah.
like if you don't like the further ends of the Saison spectrum, Tank 7's probably the one that you should go for, and it still pleases the Saison nerds as well, I think. So, but Nate, do you remember what is Three Taverns cranberry beer that they do? You're usually pretty good about remembering those. Or Brian, do you remember?
Is that
Is it,
Rapturous or
no, it's
I
not.
think
And
that's
it's
the
not
raspberry.
sapporous.
So Nate, give us
It's
a
a
Google
spiced
real
cranberry.
quick while you're see if you can find that out. But we've had a cranberry beer that Three Taverns puts out. It should probably see it here again soon. I think they get it out a little before Thanksgiving, and that's really nice. And if I can find some cranberry Tank 7, I can guarantee it's going to be on my Thanksgiving table because it'll go well with it.
Enchantress.
There you go. So cranberry spiced Enchantress is the one from Three Taverns that's really nice. So Brian, what do you think of a cranberry Tank 7?
I like the idea. I think tentatively, because I've had last year I picked up a cranberry gin and made gin and tonics with it, and I really, really, really like that. And I'm thinking, I like that. The chances are really good that I would like this, and I'm on board with it. In fact, I'd like to replace all the pumpkin beers with people putting cranberries in interesting beers.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just expand cranberries territory. It can be up to Christmas or even New Year's, but all the way back into like the very first days of fall. And we'll just get rid of pumpkin. You show up at Thanksgiving for pie, and that's it. That's your entire job. That's all you can handle. That's all you get. So that's my thought.
Then get out of here. Get on out. Get out of here.
Get out of here, pumpkin. Nobody likes you.
Has anybody done a cranberry lambic? I feel like there has to be one around somewhere. I feel like that would have happened at some
I want to say that Drifontainen did something like that, maybe.
Yeah. And doesn't Lindman's do
probably. Probably, yeah.
Could be. So are there any other that you can think of other than cranberry? Any strange like fruit or other combinations that have just worked for you in beers?
I just did a quick Google, and apparently Sam Adams did a cranberry lambic too.
Okay,
if you can believe it. That's kind of surprises me.
All right.
Yeah, and the cherry lambic too. I wonder how old those are. Other interesting things that I'm trying to think of. Something that in beer that didn't sound like it was going to work, and it totally did. You know what? The 7 Deadly Stouts.
Chocolate? Okay. Yeah,
with all the stuff in it, especially the apple brandy barrel that went into it, and you're like, this is going to be disaster. All the individual components, those would be great in a beer, but together, this is going to be a mess. It's going to be horrible. It's not going to work out, and it was beautiful. So,
and that's Monday night. Another one from Monday night. I forget the name of it. The white chocolate IPA that they did.
Oh yeah.
Something. I think.
Loving Cup.
Loving
Was
Yeah.
that at Loving Cups? And that was one that I went into. The 7 Deadly Stouts and the Loving Cup, I tried them because it was from Monday night. And I'm like, okay, if they're putting them out, they're probably good. These guys aren't going to release something if it's not. So it was totally the trust in the brewery. If almost anyone else had released that, I would not have been on board with that. So let's see. Stephen Pete, cheers to Kettle Rock Brewing. Stephen, always good to see you here. Has let us know in the chat, Stephen, has Kettle Rock done anything insane? Any insane flavors in their beer?
Any cranberry?
Another one from Three Taverns. I think about Lord Grey. That's one that I thought was kind of unusual. Earl Grey tea in a kettle sour. So
they had Lord Grey and Lord Fog. Yeah.
Lord Fog adds lactose. So you've got your Earl Grey tea and lactose in a kettle sour, and both are quite tasty, actually. So.
I think Three Taverns, and it makes sense that they'd be have a home in the Atlanta dairies because they use lactose more than probably anybody else in town.
Yeah,
and other people have a bigger reputation, but man, they're throwing lactose at everything.
Well, that's Pontoon Brewing. People were calling them like Lactoon, and I think Sean from Pontoon looked it up. He's like, "Look, guys, I'm just saying, Three Taverns has a whole lot more lactose beers than we do." So. I'm not mad at them for it.
Their lactose sours are if I could drink them, when I have, I've really enjoyed them. From Three Taverns. What's the one again that was so good in like the yellowy orange can? Is that Rapturous or
Dreamweaver?
Sapphoris.
Sapphirous. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Sapphirous, Rapturous, Enchantress, Lord Fog, Lord Grey. They've got a pretty nice little series there that they do. So. Some good stuff. Well, Brian, moving right along, some big news. Tilray is just gobbling up breweries out there. And the latest one they bought a lot of craft brands from AB, and it sounds like that sale is now complete, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's completely done, and they're now like the 5th largest craft quote unquote brewery in the US. I think Tilray still considered craft. I'm not sure whether the breakoff happens, but and I guess they have about 5% of the US craft market, but I went looking for it. I wanted to get a screenshot of it, but apparently 10 Barrel was very, very, very happy about it and promoting that stuff all over social media. Like it's like now 100% less Anheuser-Busch or something. Was like a banner on one of their facilities. I'm like, wow, these guys really are happy about this situation. So yeah,
I tell you, man, I guess you do what you got to do. But I remember them doing a lot of defense of AB when what's her name? Meg something, I think, that owns 10 Barrel or the founder. I'm trying to remember. Male, I think, is what, and she had a TV show that she did and such, but my guys, Brian's still frozen there.
I think you might be back.
Yeah. I'm back. Having bad internet. I'll just make a note to chop this part out. But, a lot of these breweries, when they sell to big beer, they defend big beer. They come back from the sell. They talk, just do your thing. But, I guess marketing, hype is part of marketing. You got to do your thing there. But it gets a little ridiculous. But, things moving, man. AB unloading a lot of those breweries that they bought, and Tilray is more than happy to buy them up. Tilray was just doing like weed like 2 years ago, and now they're one of the largest craft brewers. So congrats to them, I guess.
Yeah, they really are into it. I think they're 100% in. They're like, we're going to do this. We're going to run with it.
Yeah.
And it looks positive initially. We'll see what happens.
I mean, they've got to be a huge company because it was Afria when they bought Sweetwater, and Sweetwater wasn't a small brewery. I don't know what the deal was there, but that couldn't have been an inexpensive deal. And then, with that, they got the brewery out in Colorado that they've opened up there now. So they've got the huge facility. I mean, they take up like a city block here in Atlanta, just a massive campus there. they opened the Woodlands a few years ago that was going to focus on stuff like, wild ales, or not necessarily wild, but like mixed culture and all that. And I don't think it quite got the hype that they wanted it to. It still exists, but I don't think they push it quite like they did a few years ago. And then Tilray bought Afria and what other companies happen to fall under that umbrella, and they've just kept gobbling them up there. So
I think that all the brands they bought from Anheuser-Busch, and I don't have the original story in front of me, but I don't remember the exact total, but the total of all of 8 of the properties, I think like 7 or 6 of them were actually breweries, beer breweries. There was like a cidery and there was something else in there maybe.
Right.
They were less expensive than buying Sweetwater or Afria or whatever. I think it was just a Sweetwater price, because I think you also have Green Flash and Alpine in there, and I don't know if they were counting that in when they were doing the calculation, but honestly, Tilray did a great job of buying cheap, buying at the bottom of the market. And now, presumably, you never know where things are going. It could get worse.
Let's see what they do with it. Let's see what they do with it before we say too much about it. But
it's a good point. Yeah.
I guess for us, Brian, being where one of the breweries is located, since they're all part of the same company, that means Sweetwater's tap room we're going to be able to taste the rainbow down there. So,
I hope so.
We've already went down there and got some of the Alpine and Green Flash beers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I forget what the other one was that's on, but someone else commented another one of the brands that they acquired before this AB deal was on tap there at Sweetwater. So, yeah, I mean, I've been going to Sweetwater for going on 20 years now, maybe a little bit longer than 20 years, and have really seen them grow. I mean, I guess it is 2 decades, so, a lot happens there. But I remember when they were just, I never went to them when they were their original location along, Sweetwater Creek and the small location. But when I first started going to where they are right now, it's just the one building and a small tap room, that was just kind of sectioned off from the brew house. So they've kept on going.
I remember that smaller tap room. I was there much later. I don't think I want to say I didn't actually go to their tap room until like late 2000s, like 7, 8, 9 in that era of time before I actually went over there. So it's not been quite as long, and they definitely had the tap room before the one they have now. So it wasn't, I don't think it was as small as it started off as being, but it was still very much a sectioned off of the of the brewery. And you'd walk right, you do the tour, you walk right in, and they'd have the dank tank with the big guy painted in front of it, and that was always a fun part of the trip. That was fun. Good times.
That's their one-off series, their special releases there and such. So it was always a good time there, man. A lot of our old friends there have moved on, though. A lot of the people we used to connect with, as they keep growing, it's so that's a little unfortunate. Nick Knock is still there. Nick Knock is still a good dude, so it'll be all right. But Brian, Oktoberfest. So beer keeps getting more expensive, and Oktoberfest is no exception, right?
That is correct. So we didn't have this information when we were doing our last Oktoberfest show or our blind tasting, but the last we knew, that the Steins were about $13.50 a piece. So a liter of beer, $13.50. This year, it's just under $15. $14.67, I think, was the official average price that some economists arrived at after studying the event. And apparently, the Oktoberfest beer prices have been growing at an average rate of 3.9%, even though the typical annual inflation, I believe, in Germany has been 1.8%. So here's the thing: inflation in 2022 was 7.9%. So there is a justification for it jumping so much, but yeah, it jumped a lot. So it's man, you could get it's 1 liter is about the price of some of the less expensive hazy 16-ounce 4-packs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or a macro 12-pack. You can get
yeah. They even mentioned like you could go a block or two away off of the Wiesn and get a beer for just a small fraction of the price of what you're paying there, and probably get it in a liter for, I don't know if they said officially like half off or whatever, half the price, but there's a significant
less expensive
difference.
whatever you look at,
sure.
right? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to tell you about our beers of the week, and we want to thank our friends at the Nest for sponsoring this segment. Right now, they've got Nesttoberfest going on because this is America. This isn't Germany, so we will keep up with the Oktoberfest celebrations, maybe into Christmas. If
Sure, why not?
if things come earlier for seasonal creep, then the things we like, we can just keep them going, right? So we can
Absolutely, yeah.
take it the other way as well. But anyhow, the
American
Nest
way.
is ready for you. They've got you. They're going to have some great beers on tap there. Barbecue, tacos, nachos, everything you need. We love the wings. You've heard us talk about them a lot. So go over, check out the Nest in Kennesaw, Georgia. Enjoy Nesttoberfest and tell them the beer guys sent you. So for our beers this week, Brian did a little pre-gaming with a little Sierra Nevada Summerfest because he lives his life the way he wants to. He doesn't care what the season is. From Halfway Crooks, Brian's got a little Fest Marzen. Is that the whole cone beer, Brian, that they keep bragging about?
No, I've
Marzen?
seen
Okay.
that's a different one. It has actual hop cones on it. No, this is just a. It says Fest Marzen, but it's categorized and Untapped is just Fest beer. So I'm a little unsure about the
What even do
final
you have
style
there,
of it.
Brian?
I don't know. It's beer in a can, is what I know. I haven't opened it, so we'll
Fair
find
enough.
out.
Fair enough. All righty. We've also got a Ba Brew House Ba Light, which is a dry hop lager with no rice. Just FYI there. So we've got from Abomination Brewing Company. Love those guys. We're friends on Facebook and chat back and forth. Love their labels. But we got a little drippy popsicle there, which is a fruited smoothie sour, the Bomb Pop sour that was so hot this summer. Off Color Brewing, we've got a Stout Lean, which is a light stout, and one that all of us are drinking, and we're actually going to talk about right now. We've got a collaboration brew from Monday Night Brewing and Run the Jewels, which is RTJX, which is a Southern IPA, and it is infused with botanically derived terpenes. So we wanted to talk about this one. Pretty cool thing. We love hip hop. We love collaborations. We know Killer Mike of Run the Jewels. I think if Killer Mike saw us out, we'd get a nod. If we were close enough, he'd be like, "What's up?" and that. I don't think he would necessarily remember my name or that, but he'd probably be like, "Those are the guys from Beer Guys Radio." So, the few times we've seen him out at events, he's been extremely nice, extremely personable. He's very involved in the Atlanta community and in politics in general, and he's very much about supporting his community and lifting them up. He has used his fame and his fortune to bring awareness to issues in the community and to really support the neighborhood that he's from. So this beer celebrates Run the Jewels' 10th anniversary. If you don't know Run the Jewels, it's a hip hop duo made up of Killer Mike, who is an Atlanta-based hip hop artist, and LP, that's EL-P, who is a Brooklyn-based hip hop artist and producer. And of course, they're going on their 10 years now. They are doing not only collaboration beers, but they're doing a run of concerts in 4 different cities. I think they're in the middle, or maybe they've just wrapped up as we record this, their Atlanta run. 4 shows, 4 nights featuring one of their albums each night. And the beer is available at the venue. That's at the Eastern here in Atlanta that they're doing those. I saw some people talking about going to some of the shows, and they said it's great. I keep saying I want to go, but I got to admit, I hate crowds and loudness now. So it's like, I need to get to know Mike better, so maybe they can just do a concert just for me sometime, like, just sit down somewhere and put on a show.
An
But
acoustic hip hop show.
right, yeah, just for me there, let's do this. But yeah, so the proceeds from the beer are going to support Paul Kids in Atlanta, which is a faith-aligned community hub serving Atlanta's West Side neighborhood, which is where Killer Mike is from. So both Peter Kiley, who is the brewmaster of Monday Night Brewing, and Killer Mike are on the board of Paul Kids, both in that neighborhood. So between the Eastern, which is the venue of their concerts, Monday Night Brewing, Yakima Chief Hops, and NZ Hops, they have committed that the minimum donation is going to be $15,000. So, it's a good donation. It's a good chunk of money there that they're committing. If the proceeds don't get there, they're going to make sure that they get at least $15,000. So This beer, the one collaboration with Monday Night Brewing, is part of their Run the Brews series, and they have done additional collaborations with Goose Island in Chicago, with Interborough in New York City. I know they've done at least one other collab with Interborough. Maybe they've done more, but they did another one with them for this Run the Brews collaboration, and one in Los Angeles with Horace Ales and Highland Park Brewing. So that one out there, and they're doing shows in each of these cities. So if you are not in Georgia and you can't grab this one, or you don't have a friend that can get it for you, if you're close to Chicago, New York City, or Los Angeles, they're going to have some collabs out there that you can get your hands on, and you can go see their show to check out their 10th anniversary. It'll be a good time. So guys, we're all drinking this beer right now. Nate, we're going to start with you, man. What are your thoughts on RTJX?
So
Oh,
it's
you know what?
soft.
Let me I'm sorry. I jumped ahead a little bit. I wanted to tell about what's in this beer, Nate. My apologies, man. So this is brewed with let me find I lost my place in the notes. That's why I jumped over it. But this is brewed, it's a Southern beer. And they said to make this a Southern beer, these are notes from Peter Kiley. He said they use corn grits and wheat from Georgia's Day Spring Farms, and they use Southern Hemisphere, so playing with the Southern thing a little bit. Southern Hemisphere hops donated by Yakima Chief Hops and NZ Hops. The hops include Motueka, Nelson Sauvin Cryo, Nectaron, and Citra Cryo hops. So there we go. Nate, sorry for cutting you off. And also those botanically derived terpenes there. But Nate, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, we've been sipping on this throughout the show. It's pretty soft, pretty smooth. I get the terpenes on the nose. I don't really get too much of the dankness on the palate. But yeah, this is a really well executed collaboration beer. Kind of jealous that we're not going to be able to try the other collabs that they
That's
did,
what I was
but
thinking. Yeah, I'd like to as well.
I think we've seen the inter. I've had some of the Interborough ones, and I don't remember how I came about getting those. I'm not sure if they made it here somehow or not, but I have definitely seen those around. So maybe we will get some.
So I do have some contacts in Chicago that maybe I could tell them I'd hook them up with the Atlanta collab if they hook me up with the Goose Island collab. So I'll go to work on that, see what I can do.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah. Brian, how about your thoughts?
So immediately keyed in on like a pineapple that's in there. I like that, and I get the kind of a dank, and after tasting it for a while, weedy, like weed flavor with like the oils from the citrus skin, like they just sticky, stay with you a bit. It's bright. I think I might get some kind of like a corn sweetness in there too, and there is a little bit of a creaminess to it that lingers, but for me that pineapple and that dank citrus oil kind of hit, and just that's what the beer seems to be mostly about, and I like it. And it's not really intense. It's actually surprisingly laid back, bright and laid back overall. So very really enjoyable. I wasn't sure what to expect with this, to be honest, and I'm quite happy with it. What do you think, Tim?
So you mentioned laid back, and saw as I'm drinking this, I'll say this, and I don't say this is a knock on the beer, an observation, and maybe an unexpected part of it. This is milder than I thought. Like all the flavors in here are pretty soft overall. It's not, the hops are not bold. It's not jumping out at you. This is very drinkable. And I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing, in my opinion, for this beer. The flavors in it are great. I get a good punch of citrus, lemony citrus in this one. I get the pineapple when I look for it, Brian. It's behind the citrus for me. So the lemon really jumps out there. Nate, like you said, I get the terpenes, that dankness on the nose more than on the palate, but I do get some on the palate. So even being softer, there is a little bit of heft in the mouthfeel to it. It pours a little thick when you're pouring it. You can see it has a little viscosity to it. So it's not a super thin beer. I probably would have liked this one a little colder than I served it. I think I maybe didn't chill it quite enough. But I should back all that up by saying the flavors in this are really good. Excellent head retention. I noticed on this, like I couldn't fill my glass up for a while because it, just had such great head retention in it. Definitely get the wheat notes in there, that softness that adds to the body. Overall, this is a great beer with a little bit of unexpected characteristics when I drank it. So that's my 2 cents, Brian, on the RTJX.
Soft is a good descriptor of it. I think that everything does seem very softened, very yeah, it's like the Vaseline lens of flavor profiles or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah. So it's but a good beer. I should say that. And I imagine if you were hopping around at the Eastern as they were, you know what? If you were in a hot concert venue bouncing around and you had a can of this to crush, this would be perfect for that, for sure.
And I agree with you on it being better cold. And my place is so hot right now that my beer is actually more than room temperature. And I'm like, yeah, this was better. I mean, it's good now. It was a lot more fun to drink when it was cold.
Brian's
just because I'm not slamming them
eggs in his beer glass there. So
yeah.
For those of you on the live stream here, I'm trying to get there we go. Sometimes the camera won't focus, but there's a little can view right there for you of this RTJX. There's the other side there. So good beer though. So
yeah,
congrats. Nice. Good luck to Paul, kids. That's some good money for a good cause there.
Absolutely. Yep.
Brian, you seem invested in this one because some of this news includes talk of your tall boy cans, that on your Long Beer Friday. So has to do with draft beer. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, I've got a couple of stories that there is kind of a tie in there, but the big one, and this one's gotten a fair amount of attention, is that craft beer has a draft problem, and it's basically draft beer isn't selling well, and so Brewbound had a podcast where they had a number of different people on there talking about this situation, and Sam Calagione said this isn't a lingering problem from the pandemic; it's a generational problem. Simply put, that Gen Z is just not drinking draft beer like the generations before it did, which I think is believable, though I'm not 100% sure I agree with this as being the sole source of the problem. I think that the pandemic, permanently changed our drinking behaviors. Where, simply put, Gen Z may not be, as into craft beer as the millennials and Generation X and everybody before them. But here's the thing. I think the rest of us aren't going to bars and drinking draft beer the way we used to. We're not sitting at the bar anymore. We're favoring getting beers and going home or doing something else. And I think that's a fundamental change. And I think that's a result of the pandemic. But Sam Calagione knows a lot. So I second guess him at my own peril, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
So sales of draft beer have stalled, and they're at the same levels they were in 2021, and they're estimated to basically be behind the historic trends by about 2 million barrels. And interestingly enough, in this podcast, they were talking with the Buffalo Wild Wings director of beverages, and they're talking about changing up a percentage of their taps over to pre-made cocktails and wine and even nitro coffee. And that's a big deal because they are one of the largest sellers in the US of draft beer. So if they make this change, we're talking about a lot of beer that doesn't get sold potentially. But another thing that I found really interesting, and it was brought up, another possible reason and kind of unexpected to me, why people might be getting away from draft is because the rise of the 19.2 ounce stovepipe can. And that director from Buffalo Wild Wings said, and this is a quote, "The 19.2 ounce format is just blowing trends out of the water. That's where the consumer is going." So I had no idea that my Long Beer Friday beverages were killing off draft beer. I'm contributing to the problem because I do enjoy those cans.
Look what you've done, Brian. Look what you've done.
I know. I feel terrible too. So what do you guys think?
I have another thought on this, Brian. Another thing, not just Gen Z, but I think it probably hits the younger generations a little bit more. But you're out of college, you're starting your career, and everywhere we see student loan debt, housing costs, salaries are not starting where some of the factor could just be disposable income. If these folks want to pay off their student loans, if they want to get a house, if they want to get married and have kids one day, then paying $10 for a pint of beer at the bar may not be high on their list. It's not high on my list, Brian. I would prefer to, grab some beers and drink them at home, go get a 6-pack or go do a mix 6 somewhere. I still enjoy visiting breweries. And even though I say it's not my preferred, we do it every single weekend. We're going to hit a brewery or, a nice beer bar or something like that, or at least a restaurant that has some good beer. But that could be another factor. You look at Gen Z may not be drinking as much because maybe that's, not somewhere to put their money. I'm probably putting less money in it. So, that's my job. Part of my income is commission based, and my industry was extremely in the day job is extremely busy last year. So I do recruiting for telecommunications in the day job. And last year was the big push for the 5G build out. So last year was a really good year for me. I took a pretty good hit this year just because it's not as busy as it was last year. So the commission is not going to be where it was. And so I got my purse strings a little bit tighter. I'm not a Gen Zer just getting their career started, but I had a lot more money to throw around to be stupid with last year than I do this year. So.
I think another contributing factor might be that as everything is getting expensive, but also when you go out to the bar, there's there's an additional gratuity fee, or the tip line is starting at 18% instead of where it started at 15%. And, it may not be the 19.2, but when you go out to the store, that shelf price, you're going to get a little bit of tax tacked onto it, but that's it. And then you're going to go home and you're going to enjoy it in the comfort of your home. And I know that some people do enjoy the bar life and the nightlife, but it's the rest of us who, are looking at our budget and be like, "Ah, well, I can drink at home a little bit cheaper."
Sure. Yeah.
That's a good point about the tip. I had forgotten about that. I realized that that is a increasingly everywhere, and it's the percentage is going up. Which, not to get on a weird soapbox, but I really wish people would realize that you don't dial up the percent as the price increases. The percent makes the tip larger. You don't have to raise the percent. Now, of course, that's like doubling down on it, and you do wind up with more money, but you also wind up with situations where you get less people there because they realize that tip is going to be expensive, and they feel bad if they don't leave it, but they may not be able to afford it either, so they stay home or they buy that rack at the store.
The tip not going up, the tip percentage not going up is definitely not a conversation / argument you want to have with people. I can tell you that everyone in the food service industry disagrees with you. So,
of course,
I'm of the same mindset, Brian. If you're back in my day, Brian, which was like 40 years ago now, the tip was 15%. That was a standard good tip, and I've always played the game of doing the mental math of what about 15% is, and then rounding that up to whatever the nearest dollar is. I have, because of standards, I don't want to be seen as a cheapskate. I play around 20%. I figure that's safe.
Mm-hmm.
I do the mental math around 20%, and I just round up to whatever the closest, dollar is, or something like that.
I also remember the tip, the 3 tip percentages being 10, 15, and 20. And 10 was when you were mad, 15 was average, and 20 was when you were really happy. And that was the general thing. I started going 20% when I got my first decent job out of college where I had money. And I'm like, I want people to be happy to see me. I'm like, always 20%. And I felt like a high roller back then. Now I'm just barely satisfying the expectations.
Yeah, you're just right there if you're around it. Right.
Again, the price of food is up. So that means the actual dollar amount of the tip is also up because it's a percentage. But I get it. I don't know why I don't know why that's not something that people grasp, but I also get that if you raise the percentage, that also adds more to your tip. So yes, they want more, but anyway, we could
I feel that. Yeah, that's a different topic, but there's our friends in the food service, we appreciate you. We appreciate your service. So, but we may not agree 100% on the the accounting principles of tipping here.
And when we get treated really well, we make a point of treating the people that serve us really well.
We do.
Sometimes that means we get comp. So our tip is no longer really like tied to any kind of real
No
concept of a
real numbers.
percentage. Yeah,
It's
so
all
it becomes something else.
it's
Yeah.
like whose line is it anyway? The points are made up. We just throw it out there.
Exactly right. Yeah,
But
that's
no.
exactly right.
All right. So, good, Brian, you got more to say on this topic?
Well, not to this, but I have the other store that kind of ties into it a little
Go
bit. It's
for
about Voodoo Ranger, and they're just killing it in grocery and convenience stores. They're so big right now, Voodoo Ranger. Not only is it the #1 best-selling IPA in the U.S. in grocery and convenience stores, it's also #2. So it 1 and 2 both. The Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA takes the top spot. It accounts for 6% of all craft beer sales. Voodoo Ranger Juice Force Hazy Imperial IPA takes second place, and I don't have an actual percentage for that one, for all sales. So not only that, but according to sales data, the entire collection as a whole is outperforming all the other beer collections and styles of its kind everywhere. So over the 12 weeks ending September 10th, Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA was up 13.6% in sales. Voodoo Ranger Hazy Imperial IPA is up a monstrous 55.2% in sales. Imperial IPA is even closing in on Blue Moon in convenience stores, which is down 2.1% year over year. And this kind of all ties into the story about the draft beer problem that we talked about. Voodoo Ranger is absolutely the king of 19.2 ounce stovepipe convenience store beer can options. If you go and you're looking for the tall boys of beer, Voodoo Ranger will have at least 2, usually like 4 or 5 options available, and they move. They really move.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but why? Why is the question I've had is why is this so popular? And in an article that I read this week, they somebody from New Belgium finally explained it. They chalk it up to good marketing decisions. The brand focuses on having fun, socializing with friends, and appealing to gamers instead of making a big deal about hop profiles. So they don't get nerdy about things. It's definitely not taking itself seriously. It's very tongue in cheek. And I didn't even realize there's a gamer tie-in, but I guess I have seen that they've had like little informal online games you could play with their brand. So I'm like, they've nailed it. They've absolutely nailed what people are into. So the people are looking for a good time. They want to grab a tall boy from the convenience store and go home and game, and it really fits that lifestyle perfectly. So that's where it's at.
6%. When you think of how many beers are out there, one beer having 6% of the market, that's substantial.
Massive.
That's substantial. And I think so I don't have cable. I'm a streamer, which was a crazy concept a few years ago, but now I think a lot of people are. But I use a service called Pluto a lot to watch, and I'm almost positive I've seen Voodoo Ranger commercials on there. I know I've seen Athletic Brewing. They've run on there.
Yes.
And I think maybe I've seen both Athletic and Voodoo Ranger possibly on YouTube as well. So, they're getting the word out there. I don't know that I've ever had any of the Voodoo Ranger beers. I don't think I've ever tried them. So
I have, and I think that they're fine. They are fine. I think that they're not fussy. They taste good. I think that what we're drinking right now beats any of the ones I've ever had. But they're not bad. They're not bad. They're fine for what they are. It's a good beer. It's just a good beer. It's IPA-ish, generally speaking, fruity, juicy, hazy. Not a like he said, not like distinct anything that like, ooh, this note with the hops and this note with the hops. No, just generally positive and good all the way around. So
just one of those that hits the everyman palate, right? So
exactly
yeah.
right. It's hard to dislike them, honestly. And I was just remembering when we were talking about it. You remember when they were talking about opening the water park in
yes, that was funny.
Where was that?
was
In
a
the
good
wine
one.
country.
Yeah. They did the whole thing, and like they fooled a few people because I think they even built a website for it, didn't they?
Yes,
Like
they
put a
did.
website together for it.
They had people
That was pretty
protesting it,
funny.
which was so good.
That's
And
awesome, man. That's great. Yeah.
and I love that, and I'm sure that gave me a little bit of a positive opinion about them. But yeah, Long Beer Friday, I'm grabbing the 19.2. I try to rotate it around. There are more options now than there used to be, but it's still a little on the slim
Limited.
side, I think, overall, just because that's a tough game to get into, and Voodoo Ranger owns it. And we've talked to other breweries where like they'd like to get into it, but yeah, you have to you have to cut your profits right to the bone to stay competitive in that, because people are eyeballing that close. That's the I guess that's the budget, kind of the budget beer, I guess, in a weird way, even though it's kind of maybe not the format you would expect for like a budget beer. So yeah.
I tell you what, I think I am different than most others who want like the 19.2s and such. If I had my way, I want all beer packaged in 6-ounce bottles or cans. That's perfect for me. I can get a little bit. Now I'll compromise because that's just the way I am. I'll compromise and we can do 8-ounce cans, because that way, for those of you who want a whole pint, 2 cans, you got you a pint. You're good to go there. You're all set. For me, who I want to have a few beers, but I don't want to commit to 16 ounces or 19.2 ounces of something, then I can pop my 8-ounce or have that, move on to another 8-ounce. Or like I just drank a whole 16 ounces of one IPA. And for me, that's crazy talk. You know, I just
You're
won't
done.
do it. And, you know, back when we had our studio, we frequently, each of us didn't drink a whole of one any beer. We'd open 10 different beers, but we'd each get, you know, a third or a quarter, depending on how many people were in the studio there. I think that's what conditioned me, guys. I think that was it.
Yeah.
I like trying different beers. Same reason I like going out to a restaurant, going to like a tapas place and getting small plates and sharing them around. I want to try a bunch of things. Appetizers, like if your whole menu was appetizers, I'd be like, this is great. This is great. So remember, Brian, the time we went out for, I think it was your birthday, that the whole friend group went out to a tapas joint and everybody agreed to order everything. And one guy just ordered a salad, but he ate everything else. So when the check came and we're like, well, we'll just split this 10 ways. And we're all like, okay. He's like, wait a minute. I just ordered a salad. We're like, yeah, but you also ate everything
else.
carpaccio and the meatballs. And
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah, that's he's trying that life hack. It didn't work out too well for him. That's
good try though. Good try.
Yeah, talk about being conditioned. You know, in the studio, we always had 4 beers of the week. So tonight I've got 4 beers for my week, but they're 4 16-ounce cans.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll do it, man. It'll get you laid out there.
Yeah, I find that it's hard for me to get beyond maybe 2 in a show, just because we're not splitting it. So yeah, it's there is something to be said for getting everybody together and having some beers, you know, getting some variety in. Keeping things look at that. Tim is getting into a second beer.
Which
Tim
is
never
common for me in the show. Like I'm normally running my mouth so much that I don't get to drink a whole beer. But I've got one. It's not even in the feature list, so I'm calling an audible. I have a 3 Floyd Zombie Dust here, guys.
Oh,
which
yeah.
If this was 5 years ago, you guys all would be horribly jealous of me.
Yes.
Probably a little longer than 5 years, I bet, when they were in their heyday. But this one was very highly sought after. This is one people would mule back from the Chicago area when they could get it. But so I'm getting into a little Zombie Dust here.
Tim never has a second cup of beer at home.
Never a cup of beer.
Right?
What
is this?
What is it?
You guys know that commercial, that reference, never have a second cup of coffee at home?
Isn't that from the movie Airplane?
No, that's the Airplane thing was a spoof off of I think it was like a Maxwell House commercial.
Oh,
Joe
okay.
Jim never has a second cup of coffee at home. Well, like she's fretting about how her coffee is bad, and her husband doesn't ever have more than one, and he has a second one when he's out.
I didn't know that. I think I just knew it from I do know the Maxwell House commercials where it was like the brother comes home for Christmas, and it's just like him and his sister just creepily close to each other. Because there's a spoof on that one too that goes a little too far. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. But I'm going to get into this Zombie Dust, Brian, while you tell us what's happening with Anchor Brewing.
All righty. So, we have an update with Anchor Brewing, and it officially now belongs in a museum. Cue Indiana Jones there. The Smithsonian's National Museum of American History has acquired objects and archival materials from the now closed brewery. They will be added to the American Brewing History Initiative collection that was started back in 2016. And I think the Brewers Association was involved in starting that up. Among the things collected are brewing charts, photographs, blueprints, signage, tools, old wooden barrels used to transport steam beer back in the 19th century, sample tiles from the floor of the brewery, and other historical records, some of them about Fritz Maytag. The materials will be made available for study and research and may be included in future exhibitions or even loaned to other museums. I don't think they currently have a plan to have a dedicated Anchor Brewing exhibition just yet, but they're still compiling all the information. The article didn't explicitly state it. This is from the Smithsonian's website, but on social media, the museum curator, Teresa McCullough, said that the collection will include beer recipes, which will be openly available to brewers and researchers, which is a better outcome than it could have been. It sounds like everybody's going to have a shot at trying to keep these beers alive or making the best representation of them that they possibly can. Had it gone another way, maybe one brewery would own the entire intellectual property, and we would be stuck with whatever they thought steam beer was to them or whatever else. So, yeah, so this is not ideal. I would like it to be a fully functional brewery, potentially run by the people that worked there before, but at least this is out there and it could be used to keep the memory alive, I guess. So
I think it's so I don't know all the implications of what this is going to mean with it being in the museum and it coming out there, but judging by some of the tweets and the commentary that was made, I looked up one thing I looked up is what happens to trademarks when a business dissolves. And they don't like automatically get canceled or anything. They become assets of the company or assets that whatever's left of the company there. And that can be sold, transferred that. So if the assets of the company were transferred to this museum, then that gives them the trademarks and such, they have the IP on that. If that is the case, if the way all that works out, then, like you said, if they release this information fairly openly, then, someone could do steam beer. Someone could do a beer and call it Anchor Steam Beer or, inspired by, Anchor Steam 2 Electric Boogaloo. They could call it if they wanted to. So, but I think it's cool that I've got no love for Sapporo with the way this was handled. It seems like it was handled very, very poorly. Yes. But I think if the stuff's got to go somewhere rather than it going to somewhere where it could be closed off, or like you said, where they're using that we have to deal with whatever their interpretation is, I think it's good. It's going to go somewhere where more people can get this information. Heck, I'll be interested just to pluck through it when it comes available, just to read through it. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Nice history book there.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of interesting things that there weren't public knowledge that will be found out about and reported on just because, well, internal workings and whatnot. I would be really interested in seeing once the recipes become available, and I think it's right up until the early part of this century. Like it would include everything. I want to see some of the old Christmas ales brought back from the dead, the ones that were really popular. I'd like for people to reproduce those and say this is Anchor Christmas, I don't know, 2017, or I don't know what year was good one, but one that people really liked. We reproduced it as described, and let's see how it is now.
I would definitely buy that. Absolutely. I would. You know what I do? I'm sure that I've got a few old Anchor Christmases banging around in the cellar somewhere. I would love for someone to brew it, to take my vintage bottle of whatever I've got and get a new release version. That would be a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm hoping some good things come out of this. And Brian, I'm sorry I got distracted a little bit, but did you make any commentary on or find out any information on what this means for the union and their attempt to purchase the brewery?
No, I've not seen any kind of updates on that. Presumably from what I think I've seen, and I didn't write down, I think it's still possible this could happen. They could technically buy the facility and continue brewing beer there, but now we're looking at a situation where, well, now all of your intellectual property is owned by a museum who's going to make it available to everybody. So I don't know what that means.
That was my thinking. The fact that all the assets have gone to a museum sure don't sound like a great thing for someone looking to buy the brewery. So
yeah, I don't think it's a good sign. I think it's a long shot that anything happens with it at all at this point in time.
Let me continue speculating because I enjoy doing these kind of things. All right, let's silver line this cloud. These assets go to the museum, who makes them publicly available. That means it has just lowered the value of buying the brewery. And so probably we're talking about just the physical assets unless they've started being liquidated. So technically speaking, in a perfectly wonderful world, the brewery is now cheaper. The physical assets is now cheaper for them to buy because there's no IP involved with it. And they would still be able to use that IP to carry on the brewery because it's been going to become publicly available.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean,
We'll
there
see,
is
man.
there
I'm
is a
talking
fair.
out of my hee-haw over here, but
I will say that that is I believe it's an expensive piece of property there. So buying it
good point. Yeah.
so the property will be expensive. That may be the most expensive part, just because it's in San Francisco, and I think that's expensive land. All of the brewing equipment, I don't know. I mean, like, that still has some inherent value. I think it's all older, so maybe not a ton of value. So you might be right. It may be less
We'll
expensive
see.
now.
We'll
So
see.
So
maybe.
a quick union update. They managed to double their GoFundMe goal of $50,000 by raising just over $105,000, and they're using that for lawyer fees and legal fees to assist in their bid for the brewery and its assets. They are still actively working on expanding their Solidarity Ale collaborations. Looking at here on their GoFundMe page, they have 3 confirmed collaborations on the books for October and November. So they're still very active. I just don't know why I had to go to the GoFundMe page to see the update,
All right. We'll
but
see.
they're definitely still trying.
Keep going. Keep on keeping
Yeah.
on, guys.
It would be great if they
good.
pull it off. I'm still 100% behind it. And
Yeah.
and here's the thing: I would still buy their beer over somebody else's replica of it, basically interpretation
Yeah.
of it, because
Yeah.
it's
Gotcha.
that would be the legit one.
Yep. Yep. Brian, why don't you share your salty story? Because I really want to close things out with our Africa story.
Okay. So yeah, this is kind of a fun one. It was announced this week that Morton Salt is getting into a zany beer collaboration. Just when you thought you've heard of every kind of collaboration situation possible, you've got Morton Salt, a salt company, collaborating with Chicago's Alter Brewing on a beer they're calling Pure Joy. It's a quote hazy Goza IPA. Hazy Goza IPA. So let that one sink in.
Okay.
It's named after the Pure Joy is named after Morton Salt's founder, Joy Morton. This release coincides with their 175th anniversary. And the brewery says, like, what is this going to taste like? Everybody has to wonder, like, hazy Goza IPA. The brewery says you can expect a juicy flavor profile, a sweet citrusy aroma, and a quote noticeable punch of salts when you try the beer. So I got a question for Nate. I immediately thought of this and thought, I've seen cocktail videos where people add saline to cocktails, and apparently that helps with the flavors. It could be citrus or whatever. I don't know what exactly it brings out. Like, is that something you think would work here? You've got a juicy IPA with the fruity notes. Would adding a punch of salt help this out?
I really think it would. I mean, I'm
Okay.
really curious to try this beer because I add saline to a lot of cocktails, and it really helps. I mean, making a drink pre-saline and then adding the saline to it, you can taste more emphasis on certain flavors when the salt gets added to it. So, yeah, I'm really curious about this beer.
So that's from a culinary perspective. I mean, salt is used in things that you don't necessarily want to taste salty just because it can help concentrate and amplify the flavors. So, if you've got a little bit of salt in there, I know with brewing coffee, you can put a pinch of salt in your coffee grounds and you can lower the bitterness a little bit. So it's you don't have to use so much salt that it becomes salty, but it could go in there. But they do call this one a Goza, so I'm hoping that the salt is not. I'm curious to try an IPA Goza there, hoppy Goza, I guess. But Nate gave me a good chuckle when we were talking about this on Discord. He's like, I like their salt. I'd give it a try. I was like,
I'm a fan of their salt.
I'm a fan of their salt. They do good work with salt, so I'd give it a shot. Brian, we've got a great story to kind of close things out here, but before we do that, we need to thank our sponsors of the show. Brian, I want to thank Terrapin Brewery Atlanta at Truist Park. as you know, we're a big fan out there. They've got some great beers, kind of the brew lab, the experimental lab for Terrapin Brewery out of Athens, Georgia. So a lot of one-off beers in the tap room there are things that may end up going up to larger distribution at Terrapin, but they do some great stuff. Some that they've done throughout this summer. We talked about the Kolsch. We went up there and talked to them. When they were brewing that, we got to try that one off the tank. We did tried some experimental beers that they said they couldn't release the names of the yeast that they use, but we will say that they called one M and one C, and it was the same beer brewed with two different yeast. And it was interesting to see the differences in the beers with just the yeast change. But they've got barbecue there in the tap room from Fox Brothers Barbecue. They do a fantastic Frito chili pie. Their burger, quote, air quotes thrown around that, one best burger in the country. Now, it's not a burger, Brian. I felt a little bad with this getting best burger because I think it probably overshadowed some actual burgers, but it is a fantastic mess of chopped brisket on a burger bun with the accoutrement, as they say, and it's fantastic. So, and Brian, they're just really nice folks up there. We love the whole crew there. They always take care of us, and we recommend you go check them out as Braves run into the postseason here and start showing it up. Go out there, check them out. And when the baseball season's over, you can still go to Truist Park, hit Terrapin Tap Room Atlanta for some barbecue and good beer, and tell them the beer guys sent you.
Indeed, indeed. And you know, Tim, as much as I've been trying to resist it, and as much as my house doesn't feel like it right now, fall is officially here.
It's here.
Yeah, the weather still warm, sun's still out, still bright outside, and I'm not really ready to give up on drinking crisp lagers and bright sunshiny IPAs in the shade for the most part. But I know other people are all in on fall, and they can't wait for it to get cooler outside and drink those darker, richer seasonal beers. And so, I mean, what do you do when you want to meet up with somebody who wants to drink the exact opposite kind of beer that you do? Well, I will tell you what you do. You swing by your local truck and tap, and you have all these options. I was just taking a look at the tap list for the Alpharetta location just today, and I saw several pilsners that would satisfy my needs as a drinker of the Crispy Boys for the hot weather. But several seasonal selections for people who are ready for fall. They got an Oktoberfest. They had some pastry stouts on there. They even had a nitro pumpkin spice latte ale, if that's your thing. So, of course, they also have coffee on tap there. They got a line for it, I think, dedicated all the time. They got wine, they got spirits, so you can mix things up if you'd like to. And obviously, you got to remember the truck part of it. They've got the rotating food trucks, so there's always something different every time you show up. So if you'd like to plan your next visit to Truck and Tap, just go to their website, truckandtap.com. You'll be able to see what's up at all 4 locations: Woodstock, Alpharetta, Duluth, and Lawrenceville. That's truckandtap.com. And of course, you can tell them the beer guy sent you, and look around somewhere in the facility. There'll be a little beer guys logo somewhere
At every location. That's right. Thank you for supporting us, Truck and Tap and Terrapin. We greatly appreciate it. Brian, I feel like we absolutely have to share the story. We just can't leave without doing it. Brewery in Africa. I won't steal your thunder. Who in the world owns this brewery?
Yeah, so I'm going to say it 2 ways. I'm not sure which is the right way. The Wagner Group or the Wagner Group. I've heard it both ways. The one you heard about in Russia, that Wagner Group, they started a brewery in Africa. They started it back in 2022. The actual country is the Central African Republic. And they did it in direct competition with a French-owned brewery called Castel. And that Castel makes the most popular beers in the country. They have gone out of their way to brand the beer that they're making as Russian beer. So it's kind of weird, but it gets weirder. In March of this year, members of the Wagner Group chucked Molotov cocktails at the French brewery Castel in the Central African Republic, like I said, and the arson attack destroyed a large portion of the brewery's stock. It didn't actually do much damage to the brewery itself, but it kind of depleted what they had on hand to sell. All of this is happening while there's a civil war going on. It either is still going on or was going on at the time. And apparently Castel was involved with paying off rebel groups to protect their brewery. And the Wagner Group was using that information on social media to kind of slam them as being exploitative colonizers. in support of terrorism. So it's kind of a big Russian disinformation type of story that we've seen before, where there's social media accounts and they're blasting out the same kind of messages from all over the place. So in short, there's a full-fledged, multifaceted war for influence happening in Africa right now between France and Russia, and the battleground is beer, basically. And they're saying that France is really just a kind of a proxy for all things Western. They're just the most prominent Western country there. So, and why? Why on earth would this be happening? Well, it's all about natural resources. So this is just bizarre. Russia wants their natural resources, and everybody else wants them too, probably. And they're smearing France in the West to make themselves look good to local decision makers. So the Wagner Group first came into the country just to train the military for the country, but they've since grown their operations to go into gold mining and diamond mining, and there's all kinds of crazy intrigue, and they're basically using beer to try to win this war for resources. So at the heart of everything is beer, but it's not really. At the same time, it's not really the whole goal of the thing. So a very strange story about beer, and it's hard to get my head around. There's a lot of information out there, some YouTube videos on it. It's worth watching.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really
And this is, I mean, this isn't crazy obscure. Like the Wall Street Journal has covered it and such. You know, it's a big enough story that they've been on it. Brian, I think PMCs are the absolute craziest idea. I mean, how nuts is it that you're like, hey, you know what? We're going to build an army and you can just hire us if you have people you need us to kill. You know,
Yeah.
you know, that's we're good with that. And that's now I know they do other things too. Like I believe what
does he believe?
We'll find out soon when he reconnects. It looks like he's back.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Oh, hey.
I think we're back.
You
I don't know
believe
what this
something.
thing's. I think my router may be going south because it's doing that. All right, let
I
me
think
pause
so,
just
yeah.
a second, then I'll come in here. And you know, I know they do other things as well. Like I've seen ships that are in areas that are prone to piracy. They'll hire PMCs to guard them, you know, from pirates and stuff. So, but man, just crazy getting in the beer business. All the propaganda to try and say the West is bad and we're great. Planes that just fall out of the sky. I heard dude actually fell off the balcony of the plane. Fell out a window of the plane before the plane crashed, because that seems to be the way Russia takes care of things there.
If you're getting on a plane and they've just added a balcony to it, don't get on that plane. Don't get on that plane.
Like, I see him walking up to the plane talking to Putin. He's like, "What is that?" He's like, "Oh, his new balcony is beautiful. You'll love it." He's like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful." So
we put an extra tall railing on it.
Yes, yeah, you love it. You love it. Guys, that is all we have got for this week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Make sure to come back and hang out with us next week. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you enjoy the show, we would absolutely love your support on Patreon. We've got some cool perks there. You get in our Discord chat. You can get some swag like T-shirts and hats and that. And we would definitely appreciate your support there. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. We did it.
We made it. Hooray.
My internet is terrible this week. Terrible.
Yeah,
guys, let's go ahead and wrap up the live stream. Y'all, thanks for joining us. We will be back next week, but we loved hanging out with you. So take it easy. We'll see you next Wednesday. Cheers, everybody.